Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to do a ballistics gel barrier test, and the bullet we will be testing is the 9mm 135 grain Hornady Critical Duty. They make this bullet in a 124 grain as well, but the 135 grain is definitely the most common. So this is the one we're going to be testing today, and they advertise this bullet as barrier blind, meaning that it's designed to penetrate hard barriers, and when it enters a tissue-like substance or ballistics gel, it's supposed to still perform like a regular hollow point. So I have several different barriers at different levels of hardness, in my opinion. I'm not too sure about that. I haven't shot these yet. But what I'm going to do is set these up one at a time, and we will shoot the Hornady Critical Duty through the barrier and into the gel block and see how it performs. So let's get into it. Alright, so the first barrier we're going to test is just a standard 2x6. I don't think that the bullet will have too much trouble getting through this. I've seen bullets get shot through wood quite a bit, and they tend to just go straight through it. So I think it's going to go right through this 2x6, but it is a pretty thick piece of wood, so we'll see how it does. Now I have two 20% clear ballistics gel blocks on the table downrange, and the one I have in the front is actually my old ballistics gel block, and the one in the back is a brand new one. The reason for that is because I don't want to send a bunch of wood shrapnel into a brand new gel block and then have a nightmare trying to get that stuff out of there. So I got two gel blocks just in case it does penetrate all the way through one, and let's see how it does. Alright, so this is what the 2x6 piece of wood did. As you can see, just shrapnel all over that gel block, and that's exactly why I put my old gel block in the front. I did leave a little bit of room on the other side of this, but I knew that was going to happen. You can see our exit hole is pretty big, and the Critical Duty through the piece of wood looks like it went pretty far into the gel, probably 2/3 of the way into our first gel block, and stopped, and looks like it expanded as well. So after going through the wood, it looks like it stopped right at about 10.5 to 11 inches inside that gel block. So we will dig these out whenever we get done and see how they look. Alright, next I have a couple sheets of glass we're going to shoot this bullet through, and by itself this is a really thin sheet of glass, but if I put two of these together, it's about 1/4 of an inch thick, and this is going to be thicker than your average window. You know, it might not be made out of the same glass as a windshield or nothing like that, but it is probably as thick as a car windshield, which is, you know, one of the things that the Critical Duty is designed to penetrate is windows and car doors and stuff like that. So I'm going to go ahead and put two of these pieces of glass together, and we will see what it does. Alright, so as you can see, it just shattered that glass, obviously. Once again, got quite a bit of shrapnel on the gel, and I spaced it about 6 inches away from the gel block so that it kind of mimics, you know, going through a window or something like that. Instead of putting it directly up against the gel block, I put it a few inches away. So now on this side of the gel, we can actually see these bullets better, and the one that went through the wood is the one that you see there that stopped first. It looks like it's not quite as flat as the one that went through the glass. The one that went through the glass is right there at the end, and that stopped at 15 inches inside the gel, and looks like it completely flattened out inside of our gel block as well. And just so you can see it, I know the tape measure is upside down, but it did stop right at about 15 inches. Alright, the next barrier we're going to test is this sheet of steel that I have. It's probably a little less than 1/8 of an inch thick and weighs 3 or 4 pounds. So it's probably a little bit more than it looks like on camera, but this thing's definitely tough and really heavy. So let's see how it does. Alright, so the first shot into the steel kind of hit the top of the gel block. That steel plate's taller than the gel, and I can't really see the gel behind the steel, so I'm kind of guessing. I'm going to try and go more for the center this time so we can get it in the middle of the gel. The last one went into the gel, but I think it went out the top, so we're going to try it again. Alright, so this is how I found the steel plate. Obviously this one up here was the first one that I shot that skimmed the top of the gel block right here. So we shot it again, and that's the one that's in the center. Now, in the gel block, the one that went through the steel is that one right there underneath the one that went into our wood. Looks like it flattened out a little bit more than the one that went through the wood did, but stopped pretty much dead even, right around 10.5 to 11 inches with the one that went through the wood. And you can see that the one that went through the sheet of steel also stopped at 11 inches. Alright guys, so the final barrier that I have is this 2-inch piece of concrete. Now, I'm not sure how well that the bullet will go through this. I assume it will go through this just fine. I've never really shot cinder blocks or concrete with pistol rounds, so I'm not too sure, but I figured that this would be the toughest barrier for it to go through, so I saved this one for last. So we're going to go ahead and set this up and see how the critical duty does going through this big piece of concrete. Alright guys, so this is what it did to the concrete block. It busted it into 3 big pieces, and as you can see, might be hard for you to see, but there's a lot of shrapnel in there and a lot of bullet fragments. So the biggest bullet fragment that I found is that one right there, and there's a bunch of smaller ones all throughout the gel, but for the most part, I think that that bullet probably came apart. You know, that's a super hard barrier for that bullet to pass through and stay intact. So, alright, so these are the 3 bullets that I recovered from the gel. The first one over here on the left is the one that went through the wood and stopped at about 11 inches into our gel block. It had probably the least amount of expansion out of the 3. I'm not sure if that's because the barrier was so easy to penetrate or if that affected it in any way, but as you can see, it didn't really flatten out that much. It did expand fairly nicely and stopped at about 11 inches into our gel block, so no complaints for me. It worked just fine. Just didn't quite flatten out like the others did. Now the second one here is the one that went through the glass and expanded pretty much completely and flattened out quite a bit. Now this one went about 15 inches into the gel. And the third one over here is the one that went through the metal, our sheet of steel, and it looks pretty similar to the one that went through the glass. Expanded nicely, flattened out pretty nicely. However, this one stopped right at about 11 inches alongside the one that went through the wood. So even though they look quite a bit different, they did stop inside the gel block at the exact same spot. Honestly, I'm impressed with the Hornady critical duty after doing these tests. Now, I knew the concrete would probably be the toughest test for it, which is why I saved it for last. But as far as the bullet being able to penetrate hard barriers like that, you know, steel and glass and wood, and still expand in tissue or gel or anything like that, is super impressive, and that's probably not an easy thing to do for bullet manufacturers. So you can only expect so much, and The Hornady Critical Duty definitely exceeded my expectations in this test, and yeah, I'm impressed with it. So if you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up for me. If there's anything else you'd like to see, feel free to leave a comment for me down below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time.